A 9-year-old girl in California bonded after she was able to take care of a goat as part of a 4-H program. But when her family tried to save the goat from being auctioned off at a county fair for slaughter, the Shasta District Fair got the police involved. Detectives allegedly drove more than 500 miles to capture the goat, which was then reportedly slaughtered. The girl's family is now suing Shasta County and District Fair officials. We reached out to them, but they're not commenting on the case. So I want to turn now to the attorney for the girl's family, Vanessa Shakib. She's co-founder of Advancing Law for Animals. Vanessa, thanks so much for being here. Can you just give us a little bit of a history? When this 9-year-old girl, whose name we're not broadcasting, when she got this goat, what did she think the end result was going to be with this goat?
Well, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. This is truly a shocking story and a textbook example of government gone rogue. We have a 9-year-old who raised a little goat and absolutely fell in love with Cedar. And it wasn't until she got to that auction that she truly understood what would happen to him. And because Cedar was her property before the auction and at the auction, and because she had an absolute statutory right to walk and disaffirm that contract, there was no problem, legally speaking, with her leaving. And what happened next was absolutely outrageous.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Her mother basically wrote a letter to the fair officials and said, my daughter's actually had a very hard year. She lost 3 of her grandparents. We'd like to not have the goat. Well, I'll actually read it here. Our daughter lost 3 grandparents within the last year, and our family has had so much heartbreak and sadness that I couldn't bear the thought of the following weeks of sadness after the slaughter of her first livestock animal. So they were basically asking, you know, for leniency for this goat. And then what happened?
What happened next is truly abhorrent. As I've said, the little girl owned Cedar, and she had a statutory right to leave this fair. But the officials here transformed what at best was a simple property dispute into a criminal circus. And sheriffs here got a warrant authorizing them to breach entryways to go get a little girl's beloved pet goat. This is absolutely a gross miscarriage of justice and a failure of priorities.
So somehow police drove something like 500 miles looking for this goat. They thought it was at one, you know, sort of retreat. It wasn't. They had to drive back, and they found the goat, and it was reportedly killed. So now the lawsuit, what's the crime here? What are you suing for?
We have a laundry list of crimes here. Going through the Constitution, we have claims for violations of the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the 14th Amendment. We're alleging viewpoint discrimination, an unlawful search and seizure, a violation of this little girl's due process rights, as well as intentional infliction of emotional distress. Because the bottom line is here, these officials knew of the property dispute, and in fact, my clients owned this goat, and they went with a warrant, drove 500 miles, crossed several county lines to take this goat, and instead of abiding by the law and holding Cedar until this issue was adjudicated, they turned him over for slaughter. They improperly acted as judge, jury, and executioner, and that is not the role of the sheriffs.
Here is what the Shasta District Fair CEO said about why they would not allow this 9-year-old to keep the goat from being slaughtered. They said, making an exception for you will only teach our youth that they do not have to abide by the rules that are set up for all participants. Also, in this era of social media, this has been a negative experience for the fairgrounds, as this has been all over Facebook and Instagram. So that was their rationale for not giving her, you know, any sympathy on that. So how's she doing, Vanessa? How's the little girl doing?
As we can all imagine, she's absolutely devastated and traumatized. We are a nation of pet lovers. Many of us have pets at home. We have dogs and cats that we know and love and that we consider members of our family. This little girl lost a member of her family, and she is absolutely heartbroken.
Vanessa Shakib, thank you very much. Please keep us posted on what happens here. And my panel is back with me now. Molly, wasn't this the plot of Charlotte's Web? This was exactly how Charlotte's Web went when Fern fell in love with Wilbur. But she was able to keep Wilbur, remember? And we all love that book. And so we were very happy about that. And this went in the opposite horrible direction.
I don't think this is the best use of the police's resources. I mean, driving 500 miles and going and executing a search warrant for a little goat. I mean, I think this is wrong. And by the way, the fairgrounds really come off looking terrible, right? That was all over Instagram.
This is not good for their socials.
I mean, really, like,
That's the
these are
justification.
people, these are children. Like, I don't care about your brand. This is a child.
But I mean, what they say, Jay, because I know you blame me when I try to defend them. What they
You're a
say,
heartless goat killer,
thank you. That's what you've been telling me during the commercial break, is that this was the setup. You were going to, this part of the learning experience was you were going to see how you care for a goat, and the food process, the food pyramid is you care for this goat is then slaughtered to be turned into meat for people's barbecue.
Alisyn,
that was the process that you were going to be learning.
Right? The quality of mercy is not strained. Spare the goat, right? Just feels like this bizarre, definitely feels like there's something we don't yet know about this case. And I'm curious, look, we spent 2 weeks with Gwyneth Paltrow's ski trial. Maybe, the purloined goat, the sort of George Romero version of Charlotte's Web is going to be the next thing to capture America's interest.
All right.
Or not.
Joe?
I mean, look, there's so much here. First of all, if you have a pet that you love, hire that woman. Second of all, because that was amazing. I mean, we have everything here. We have big government overreach. Big government has gone rogue. I'll simply remind people that Senator Rand Paul has a no-knock warrant proposition sitting in the Senate collecting dust. Call Chuck Schumer, ask him to get it passed. I just think at the end of the day, there is so much that we can dig into here because that goat should still be alive today. And were it not for big government, that girl would have.
The Shasta Fair is now big government.
This is clearly these guys, whoever these sheriffs are, and the fairgrounds who are upset about how it looks on Facebook. This is the Law and Order caucus. These children need to learn a lesson. You're going to kill your goat. You're going to kill your goat. This isn't John Wayne.
Whose tax dollars? Whose tax dollars? Who paid for these cops and the overtime and the
gas? 500 miles.
And why did we give the goat a name? Why did the goat get a name?
Great point.
That's problematic.
That's such a great point. If you give a goat a name, that is not generally what goes to auction.
Do all slaughtered goats have names?
Yes. I don't think so.
Okay, me neither.
I have trouble. But Rand Paul,
I think that's called a pet.
let us not call Rand Paul the hero of this story. Let us just take a moment.
No story.
They could be.
I don't know that he
I'm
could
pretty
be.
sure the Legal Defense Fund for Animals has a pretty hard left view about animal rights, also in the Constitution. So be careful who you kind of get into bed with.
All right, friends. I don't know how we got to Rand Paul from that story,
Strange
but
bedfellows.
yes, strange bedfellows indeed. All right, thank you.